Greetings everyone and welcome back to 365 Days of Prog. Today we're going to be reviewing of Cues and Cures by National Health.
Hi, my name's Naomi. I'm an avid progressive rock fan, but I'm a long ways from knowing all the prog albums out there. But this year, I'm gonna give it a try. This is 365 Days of Prog.
Excuse me if I sound a bit rusty during this video recording, but the thing is I've just come back from vacation and it has been a wonderful time. I hadn't had one single vacation this entire year, so yeah, I had a pretty good time, but I'm kinda out of the loop at this moment, so hopefully I'll get back to it right away. But anyway, here's some of my favorite bits from this album.
Phlaka-phlaka-phlaka-dum-kash, Kuchaffa-kuchaffa, Um-kaka-umakaka-flibbit-flibbit-flibbit-flibbit, Rakatakatakataka-bish.
Yeah, this last section was actually an entire song, not just one segment from it. So let's start this one off with a bit of a disclaimer. It seems like recently we've been getting a lot of Canterbury scene albums, one after the other. There's so many of them, and honestly, while I'm enjoying the heck out of them, I feel like it makes my juices run dry when it comes down to actually knowing what I'm gonna say about them. So I will try today and make a compelling review telling you about this band and everything that this album has to offer, but honestly, if I had to sum it up, I could say it in 3 words. This album, it's great. Typical Canterbury. So let's begin. National Health is a band that originated from the ecosystem we now know as the Canterbury scene in Kent, England, and while this band mainly formed out of 2 disbanded bands that have recently just ceased working, and those being Hatefilled in the North and the other band called Gilgamesh. And the original lineup of National Health consisted of several members, the one being Dave Stewart, formerly of Hatefilled in the North and Caravan, and he's on keyboards alongside Alan Gowan, formerly from Gilgamesh, also doing the keyboards. Both Phil Miller and Phil Lee on guitars on here, as well as Mont Campbell on the bass, and on vocals we do have Amanda Parsons, which is something very interesting, seeing as usually she's a contributor and not an actual part of a band. But in the upcoming months, since this band formed in 1976, the lineup would change drastically, almost on a monthly basis, and some of the people to go through this band were actually John Mitchell, Bill Bruford, and even Steve Hillage, until the band finally settled on a 4-man lineup in 1978, consisting of Dave Stewart, Neil Murray, Phil Miller, and Pip Pyle. And this finalized lineup of National Health finally released their long-awaited debut album, being their self-titled called National Health, in February of 1978. Now, contrary to a lot of the albums I review on this series, this one is a definite prog rock / avant jazz fusion album, and it came out in the era of punk music, yet it was quite notably successful for its time. And of course, seeing the success of their debut, the band decided to ride on that wave of success and immediately started working on their second album, which would be called Of Cues and Cures, and that one would be released in October of 1978 as well, and also would be quite successful, but again with a bit of lineup changes, mainly with John Greaves now being on the bass, and of course with other incorporations from Henry Cow and Slap Happy such as Peter Blegvad and Georgie Bourne being contributors to this album. And while their debut album certainly made the ranks, this second album would prove as a big blow to the world of rock, showing that good music will always prevail, because this one, as I said, despite coming out in the era of punk rock, still managed to be a banger, outdoing its predecessor, which is almost unbelievable for the time, and honestly it was so good. But unfortunately National Health would disband right after it without ever reforming. But unfortunately National Health would disband right after this one, but it wouldn't take long for them to reassemble once again, but unfortunately under less than ideal circumstances. You see, in 1981, Alan Gowan, that featured on the first album by National Health, would unfortunately pass away after having a short battle with leukemia, and he fortunately did so after actually recording one of his solo albums with members of Gilgamesh called Before a Word Is Said. And in order to honor him, the existing members of National Health reformed one final time, and in 1982 they released an album which basically was only comprised of compositions written by Gowan, which were performed by the existing members of the band. But afterwards the band would disband one final time, and this would leave them unexistent from 1982. And well, the legacy of National Health is quite an interesting one, because they haven't been here for long, but they definitely have left their mark on the world of music as a whole. Their first two albums are still, to this day, considered to be some of the best additions to the Canterbury scene discography, being timeless masterpieces that people come back to time and time again, and I can definitely tell you I can see myself coming back to at least the second one, seeing as I have yet to hear their debut. But yes, as I stated in the beginning of this video, National Health doesn't pose something too different into the Canterbury scene, just very much quality music inspired by the likes of Caravan, Hatfield, Egg, and others. And well, this album, it's pretty darn cool. You see, Of Cues and Cures did not reinvent the wheel, but instead it made the car go faster. This one, much like the Italian prog scene, which made this ecosystem with its denizens just trying to go higher and higher in each turn, made the same thing in Canterbury, seeing as all the bands and all these members always wanted to create something better, something that would be the peak of their musical expression. And well, with this album, I do believe that they've gotten pretty freaking close. And I love the playing on this album. This one, it's practically an instrumental album when you come to look at it, and it's so freaking good. Despite using well-tested methods from the past, these guys have managed to explore new tones and new ways of creating music, which would on the one hand sound very much familiar to people coming from this scene, but on the other hand would enrich something new into the world of this type of music. And well, I love it so much, but if I had to point one person, it would have to be Dave Stewart. He just shines on here so well. I know that he adds so much into every album and band that he's in, but honestly with this one, it's just a very Stewartish album. I think that the best example from this entire album to his true brilliance has to come in the form of the track called Dreams Wide Awake. This one is where he goes full unflattering mode and he just unleashes everything that he can on his mini moog, and honestly, I come back to this song so many times because it's so freaking good. But I have a guilty admission to say. You know, whenever I listen to an album from this list, I don't want to forget it altogether, so I came up with an interesting idea where I would choose one song which is my favorite from the album, and I take it and I put it on a Spotify playlist. So if you go to the channel right now, you can definitely see in my about page there's this like Spotify logo, and you can browse through my playlist of my favorite songs from each album throughout this entire year. And well, I wanted to put Dreams Wide Awake as my favorite from this one, but there's an issue. There's another track which I think I like better. I come back to it, I listen to it on repeat over and over and over and over again, and that one is called Phlaka-phlaka-phlaka-dum-kash. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry for it. I know this album is filled with so many great things, yet I chose this unholy Zool prototype type of thing, but it's so fun, it's so nice, I love it so much, and I'm gonna put it as my favorite, but know that this entire album is just way out of this world in so many senses, and it's not me joking around. But yeah, can I go song by song and tell you why they're so great? I don't think I can. I think you just have to experience this album for yourself and understand what I'm talking about. And if you like the likes of Caravan, Hatfield and stuff like that, you're most likely gonna love this one. It's so good. And if you don't like this type of music, what are you doing here? Why are you watching this video? This album cover on the one hand looks pretty much lovely, but on the other hand doesn't even look like it's supposed to be an album cover at all. Like, yeah, I like the idea of this cabinet with the skulls and the ears in the formalin jars, but why make it look so amateurish and overall just ugly? It doesn't look good. I don't get it. And you know, looking at their debut album's cover, they can definitely produce a really good cover art, so why go at it like this? So yeah, while that probably will remain a mystery unless anyone can enlighten me on what's behind this cover, the only thing I can say is that I noticed a pair of spectacles on the drawer itself, and I can assume that it has something to do with the name of National Health given to the band because of Stewart's National Health spectacles that he got, and I don't entirely know what that means because I couldn't find just one specific model that was like the NHS spectacles, but I guess those were sort of the thing in question. This album was a great ride, and I think it definitely showcased everything that makes a good Canterbury album so freaking worthwhile. But in another sense, I don't feel like it has done too much new to this scene, and it kind of just stays as something very solid, very good, but overall I would call it a rating of 8 out of 10. But that's about it, guys. I hope that you enjoyed this video and stay tuned for tomorrow because we're gonna be listening to Music in a Doll's House by Family. I of course want to thank my lovely supporters over on Patreon, so thank you so much to Clay Warner, Steph Kings and Lindsay Haycox. You guys are just the best, and if any of you want to support me over on Patreon, you can find the link down in the description or in my about page. But that's about it, guys. Have a wonderful day and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Bye, guys.